Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Field Rep Studio. I am your host today, Glenn Trace. I am a business data analyst here at PCRB and now part-time radio host. So coming to you live from the boardroom in Philadelphia. And so we have an exciting program here today, and we're going to pull back the curtain a little bit on the field reps, so to speak, and learn more about what they do, what their role is here at the PCRB, and what makes being a field rep a rewarding career. So we have the pleasure of introducing and learning more about 3 field reps today. We might be missing one, so maybe 2. And their names are Andrea Hutchins, Chris O'Neill, and Melanie Bogus. And so we built a little hype here. So let's welcome our first field rep. So he graduated from Washington and Jefferson College with a degree in economics. He started his career as a financial planner and estate planner for American Express Financial Advisors. He then became a manager for a candy company and eventually spent 6 years as a manager with Tasty Cake. That sounds fun. But he started his own commercial landscaping company after leaving Tasty Cake. He's done everything, I think.
Yes.
But from there, he became a casino dealer, a casino host, later transitioned to a commercial insurance account manager, and finally, he took all of his experience and talent and brought it to the PCRB 6 years ago. So, drum roll, please welcome Chris O'Neill to the Field Rep Studio. So how you doing today, Chris?
Good, I'm doing well.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
I didn't think everybody would know my entire varied work experience, but
yeah, you've had a couple jobs.
Yes, it worked for the field rep. That's how it works.
So let's hear about your time here about being a field rep. So what is the best part about your job?
I'm a people person, so I love going out and meeting people and seeing things like seeing businesses and seeing behind the curtain on businesses that normally you don't get to see as just a normal person. So meeting people and seeing new businesses and things that I don't normally see, I guess.
So are you meeting new people every week? And how many people are you meeting?
Well, we used to before COVID, but it's been a little bit scaled back since then. But probably a couple times a month we're out on the road now. I am a person who, as my boss is sitting here would know, I'm a person who wants to be on the road 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. So, because like you said, what do you like about the job? I like meeting people and seeing people.
So it sounds like you have online meetings now too. You don't enjoy those as much?
Oh yeah, no, the Teams meetings? Yeah. No, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a person like FaceTiming in real life. No, don't ever FaceTime me or try and FaceTime me in life because it's never happening. So cameras and team meetings are not my thing. I'm face to face.
This is working well now.
Yeah.
So that was going to be the next question. What is the worst? So I assume it's that.
What's
the worst part about the job?
The worst part about the job is paperwork. Okay. For me, like I'm more of a interview and social type person. If you give me a list of 1,000 numbers that I have to transpose over and over, that's like pulling teeth for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big fan of that. And I know there's probably like actuaries in here that are laughing at me saying that, but yeah. So repetitive data entry is my problem. I'm not very good at it.
Yeah, so we addressed a little bit of that, and we'll be getting into that tomorrow for you guys. But so we'll go into the next question. So what has been a significant change in your duties since you have started here? Maybe talk about some of the technology that's changed. Maybe some of the people have changed. Some of the processes, procedures.
I think I kind of touched on it earlier. It's COVID. I think it changed probably everything. It's kind of like 9/11. It's one of those things in your life where it changes everything after. Mm-hmm. And we were, you're dealing with people. You're going to their business. And people it went from being fine to nobody wants you to come to the business. And just the change of being more of a telecommuting or teleworking instead of doing all face-to-face work was the biggest change that I think so far.
And so you just touched on it. How do people typically react when you show up at their business?
I would say 50% of the people are good at business, understand that it's just something that has to be done. Mm-hmm. 40% of the people have never heard of us, have no idea why I'm there. And then there's the 10% that can be a little bit difficult. Mm-hmm. And you always remember that 10%, that's a little bit difficult.
So maybe you have a story then. What's an interesting story of?
Well, I had one guy sick his dog on me, Christina, and so he purposely sent me to his house where he had a 6-foot-tall Great Pyrenees, and it was aggressive. And
6 feet?
6 foot tall, yeah.
Jeez.
So he stood up on his back. I'm 6 foot tall. He stood up on his back legs, and I pushed it straight in the chest, and it fell back. And then by that time, the owner was able to come around. It like ripped. Christina bought me a new shirt. It ripped my shirt. So he did, and he wasn't very open to the survey process. Also,
was it worth comp claim for the shirt?
No, I think that was just out of pocket.
but I have heard of another field rep someone pulled a gun on. So at least I don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, that'd definitely be intimidating. But so, what do you see changing for this position in the future? How do you see this position changing?
Changing. Hopefully, going back out on the road. I do think we gain a certain amount from being face-to-face with people that we have missed over the phone. So I'm going to push every chance I get out on the road is for me.
Maybe touch on some of those advantages of being in person versus the online.
Well, first of all, I mean, think about you in real life. If you have someone who's calling you, it's much easier to avoid them. If you really want to avoid them, it's much easier to avoid them. When you're in person, they can't avoid you. The second thing is, there are things that, like, we see that I would never tell to the insured. I just saw that, and it's going to change everything, that they might never, ever mention over a phone call. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's more, we can use our experience and things we see on the road better than a phone call.
Mm-hmm. So let's take it outside of work for a second. So what's one thing you enjoy doing in your free time?
So I told this in the other group. I grew up in a suburb, and over the last few years, I moved way out in the middle of the country. And I hunt my own property. So I started hunting a few years ago, and I got an 8-point buck on Saturday.
So. Very nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so hunting is my newest hobby, per se.
How long have you been doing that for?
Since the pandemic, because my house settled on March 27th, 2020, which is one day after the pandemic emergency was called. So I moved in during the pandemic, and I had a contractor who had to stop working, so I lived for like 3 or 4 months without a bathroom or a indoor bathroom or a kitchen. Mm-hmm. But yeah, since then, I've lived at this property where I've been able to hunt on my own property, so it's a nice advantage.
That's good timing to lock in the best rate possible.
Yeah.
But okay, so thank you very much, Chris, for the great conversation. I appreciate you sharing your experiences, and let's have a big round of applause for Chris O'Neill.
You're next.
Okay. So now we will welcome our next field rep to inside the field rep studio. So she graduated from Robert Morris College in 1981. She began her career with Travelers Insurance Company in Pittsburgh, later moving to Hartford to work on the computerization of the field audit billing process. She moved to PCRB as a field representative in 1986. She began by performing test audits exclusively, later adding surveys. She has seen a dramatic improvement in the quality of audits and surveys over the years, and she is married to her husband of 34 years, has one son, and her interests are walking, baking, and traveling. So please welcome Melanie Bogus to the Field Rep Studio. Okay, so what is the best part of your job? Similar question that I just asked Chris. What do you think the best part of your job is?
I think the best part of our job is the vast information that we learn. Like, we know a little bit about every business out there. I always say, I wonder what I would be doing if I knew all this existed whenever I was 20-something. So we're learning a lot about every type of industry out there. So that's probably my favorite part of it.
So what do you think maybe the worst part is? Deep breath.
Telecommuting? The worst part of our job. Recently, I think what I don't like since COVID is we used to go into an appointment and you're focused on that one account when you're there. And probably the stuff you guys have dealt with for years and years and years, what we're dealing with now. I'm working on an account, the phone rings, I'm answering this phone call, then an email comes, and then I look at the clock and it's time to call this next person, and you're constantly juggling and trying to make sure you didn't forget to do something you need to do. And that's always a challenge.
And then that you have to do that on the road sometimes, right? So I'm sure that
Normally
maybe
not,
adds.
because when you're on the road, you don't answer the phone if it rings. You turn off your ringer before you go in. You would go out and check it and call the people as you're leaving an appointment. So you don't have those interruptions normally.
Oh, that's good. Makes that a little bit easier. So another similar question that I asked Chris, what do you think, since you've also been here a lot longer than Chris has, what has been some of the changes in procedures, policies, technology that probably stand out the most to you?
So many. I remember doing all our audits manually at the end of the week, going to the post office to mail our mail and go pick up, they would mail us our worksheets and we would do all that. For years, we sat at payphones, getting directions to things, calling people, where are you? Don't know what we would do if that was the case now, because there aren't any. So we've gone from a very, I don't know what the word I want to use.
Rudimentary.
There we go. To just, the changes are incredible. We have so many more devices to help us with our jobs. When I'm doing audits, I can, instead of typing everything out, I can have autocorrect that's giving me, like, it'll type a whole sentence for me. So it saves us time in our jobs when we're doing that.
Well, that's good. So since you have been here a while, do you have an interesting story for us, maybe good, maybe bad, about being on site at a business?
Well, I was doing an audit, and I was in the back room with a woman, and her husband was out in the front room, and he didn't like me asking questions on what they did. So he came back and continued to give us a hard time, and she was kind of calming him down, telling him to go away. And this continued throughout the audit, and finally he came in and just started screaming, went ballistic. And I said, that's okay, I'm done, I don't need anything else. And I went to walk out the door, and he walked out in front of me and pushed the door and knocked it off the building. And I just ran to my car, hopped in and locked the door.
And you still work here? I probably would have quit. That's scary, though. But so how do you see this position maybe changing in the future?
You know what, that's hard to say, because with the technology that we're using now, and I'm old, so I don't understand a lot of the capabilities and a lot of things that are going on. I can't even imagine how we will be doing audits 10 years from now. I won't be here to do that, but I really don't know where it would go, because it's just the changes that have occurred in the past 30-something years are just amazing to me.
So I want to maybe get a question from the audience. Does anybody have a question? All right, here we go.
What's a day in the life of a field rep? Like, what are some daily tasks that you do, especially like when you drive out, like, and meet people in person?
So we usually send out an appointment letter and schedule it. I normally, unless there's a reason I'm going somewhere far away and I don't have a lot of work in that area, I don't call and confirm before. I just go to the door, go in and introduce myself. And most of the time people are pretty receptive at this point. So it's just kind of guiding them to which records we need to see. Today with computers and stuff, there's so many different payroll reports. So they're like, well, what do you want? And when you're there, it's kind of nice because you can get on and see what their records are. So a payroll journal may have something that a payroll summary is not going to have, or vice versa. And so it's just gathering the information and then trying to balance that. And there's a lot of questions. You're asking a lot of questions to try to find out, why is your tax report reporting this and your payroll's reporting this, and trying to find out what that is, because we need to determine if that's going to be included in an audit or excluded. Then the other big side of it is just gathering the information. What I was saying to Glenn earlier is probably the funnest part of the job is and it's one of the most challenging parts of the job, is you're trying to get people to explain their operations. And in manufacturing specifically, sometimes it's a little difficult because they're not explaining very well. And you have to explain to somebody who has never seen that isn't sitting there, here's what they do. So it's just asking a lot of questions and trying to, till you completely understand what their operation is. And you can write that up comfortably.
So it's sort of like just picking their brain, learning about them and, their operations until you get the information that you need, or when you're satisfied, and then you head out.
It is. It's a lot of questions. You ask a lot of questions. And people say, why are you asking me so many questions?
I usually ask a lot of questions too, so I know how you feel.
And what do you do?
Okay. Do you have time?
What's your position though?
Data collections operations.
Okay.
Thank you, Zach. So thank you, Melanie. I mean, you hinted earlier that you might be retiring soon. I'm sure that's going to be a big loss for the PCRB with how much experience you have, but appreciate you spending time with me today. And a round of applause. Okay. So now we have our last field rep, and to explain, so she attended a local community college studying both business and finance. She has worked various jobs throughout the years, including purchasing with a wholesale horse supply distributor and handling international accounts. She changed careers and began working as an Amazon account specialist for an online pet supply company. She managed this company's U.S. and Canadian Amazon marketplace and would handle all purchasing and arrangements and shipments to the Amazon facilities. Back in 2018, she began working for an insurance company as an auditor, and 3 years later, she has brought her experience and skills that she's acquired over the years to PCRB. Please welcome Andrea Hutchins to the Field Rep Studio. Okay, so let's start with, can you just describe what a field rep does in your words?
Melanie said it the best, I think. Just going out, getting as much detail as possible, trying to get the insured to understand what we're looking for, why we're asking the specific questions, and really just getting a good understanding of what that business does, if there's any interchange of labor between employees.
Yeah, and maybe, so Chris says something, he was maybe talking about his experiences about when you arrive at the business. How do they typically react, in your opinion? How do they receive you showing up?
Insureds?
Yeah, the insureds.
Well, I've only gone to a handful of in-person audits. Mainly, they're all virtual because of COVID. But some of them are very not happy to, deal with us. They think it's a scam. Sometimes it takes a lot of reassuring and explaining who we are, why we're asking this, what our business is, what the purpose of it is. So sometimes that can be difficult, but then you have people that are really happy and, love to share about their business, so.
Yeah, you definitely have a different experience than the other two because you started after COVID, so you didn't get the full in-person that they've been describing. But maybe you have an interesting story when you were in the field. I know there's only a couple, maybe good or bad, maybe online, anything?
Not really. I mean, you just have the few that are very hesitant to give you the information. I don't think I have any really interesting stories about it.
Well, maybe next time we do this, you will.
Yeah.
So that's probably a good thing because you had a dog attack, you had a door coming down. At least you don't have to experience that. So what's the difference between a test audit and a survey, and which do you prefer?
They're kind of the same. I mean, sometimes the test audit can be a little more difficult to try to figure out just to get the correct information, or sometimes they give like 52 weeks of payroll for, 100 employees, and you have to figure out the, breakdown for each employee. So sometimes they can be a bit more time consuming. Surveys are interesting because you kind of go into more detail. You don't have to worry about the payroll. But you're still asking, you need to get down to what they do as a business, what the employees are doing.
Do you typically do more audits or more surveys?
More surveys, more audits definitely. And then the handful of surveys each month.
Sounds good. So let's jump another out of work question. So do you have any interesting facts about yourself, or maybe something you enjoy as a hobby? And what is it?
I'm kind of all over the place. Anything outdoors, hiking, gardening, skiing,
I'm a skier myself.
Yeah.
You ever go up to Vermont or any out west?
No,
No?
unfortunately not. Just the Poconos, but
Yeah, once you go out those areas, you never want to go back to the Poconos. So.
Jeff was just saying. We talked about that earlier.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the insightful conversation. Let's have a round of applause for Andrea Hutchins. And so that's all we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests and audience for their time and attention. On behalf of PCRB, I'm Glenn Trace, and I'm signing off.